Here's how big of a recruiting weekend we have coming up for the University of Miami. I was going through the rankings, and literally 4 out of the top 10 prospects, according to 24/7 Sports, are all going to be on Miami's campus this week.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Donno, your host. I'm a University of Miami alumnus, longtime South Florida sports radio vet, and contributor to allhurricanes.com. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We are available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. Since we are heading into what I like to call recruiting Armageddon, that's how big the weekend is we have coming up. Let's bring on our resident scout and recruiting overlord. Brian Smith is with us now. I knew I would screw that layup out somehow. Here we are. Brian Smith is with us. How are you, sir?
Doing well. And yourself, Alex, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. Brian is our network recruiting expert and a colleague of mine at allhurricanes.com and Fan Nation. So, Brian, as I mentioned, Miami is going to have 4 of the top 10 prospects, according to 24/7 Sports, all on campus at the same time. Let's start with the highest ranked out of those individuals. Colin Simmons, 5-star edge out of Duncanville, Texas, number 4 ranked recruit in the country. LSU seems to be the leader in the clubhouse right now for him, but obviously it's so early in the official visit process. Other schools like Miami have a chance to make up some ground here. How much of a program changer is Colin Simmons in your mind?
He's a guy that could come in and compete with Ruben Bain right away. And for any Miami fan, that puts it in perspective. Yeah. Colin is one of the top 2 or 3 edge rushers in the country. He plays at a tremendous program. He's been a guy that everybody's known about for a long time. He's not going to be overwhelmed by the nuances of college football. He'll play as a freshman somewhere. Oklahoma, LSU, Miami, it doesn't matter. He's really good. The only question I have with him is where's it going to be, just like everybody else, because his list is long. And I don't think this process has really even gotten all that started. He's going to be a late decision guy, probably.
So when I see that, like according to the On3 tracker, for example, they have LSU as the trending favorite. Do you think it's even too early to handicap that?
Well, he might be talking about them, but historically, a kid like him who's got probably 50 offers, what day of the week is it? And I mean that in a literal sense.
Right.
You know, you see these things. Well, we were the leader for him 2 weeks ago. Well, you might have been the leader for him 2 weeks ago and 3 other times in that span, but these kids change every day.
Right.
It's part of the process. So his visit, whatever one it is next, the next phone call, the next text, the next direct message on Twitter can change that. It is that volatile. So especially when it's early in June, I'm sure Oklahoma, Texas, and Texas A&M aren't going to give up on him. I'm sure Miami's not going to give up on it. I know Alabama and Georgia are. Yeah. These schools are all going to come out. I mean, he doesn't care because he knows he holds the cards. There are a handful of kids in the country that get to tell Kirby Smart, you have to wait. You get to tell Mario Cristobal, you have to wait. He's one of them. You know, that believe me, off the record conversation, those guys hate that.
I know.
But you're not going to win without him. They hold all the leverage, so he can wait longer.
I think this player holds all the leverage as well, staying in that top 10. This is the 6th ranked player in the country per 24/7 Sports, and that's 5-star defensive tackle David Stone out of IMG Academy. He is going to be on Miami's campus this week. In addition to Miami, where he's been for a ton of unofficials, Oklahoma seems to be the leader in the clubhouse. He's originally from that area. Michigan State and Florida are also in the mix. What do you think's going on with David Stone?
I think he is overwhelmed. When I spoke to him a couple weeks ago, he openly admitted it. He couldn't even get his visits lined up. Miami finally got everything set, but he's probably going to make a later decision than he wanted. He wanted to be done before fall camp. It just hasn't worked out that way, and I give him credit for admitting that. He's mature enough to know that. Miami is one of 2 or 3 schools that I could see realistically keeping him instead of Oklahoma, but this weekend, I don't know if it's going to be enough to make him the leader or whatever. This season's probably more important for him than getting back down. Oklahoma's the leader in the clubhouse for me too, until otherwise proven. But Miami would be one of the very, very few that I think could pull it off. He has a really great relationship with Miami staff.
Yeah.
So, and the guys that are already on campus that are also IMG guys, Big Maui, Jaden, all those guys, that matters, man, because you're not going to just get a kid who grew up 30 minutes from OU unless you've got kind of special relationships. So this weekend's important, but I still think getting him on campus again in the fall is even more important.
How important is this weekend with five-star edge rusher Dylan Stewart, who is in that top 10? He's the 10th rated player in America, five-star edge out of the Washington, D.C. area, Friendship Collegiate Academy. I know another school that's really after Dylan Stewart is South Carolina, who added another five-star DC area guy from last year in Nicholas Harbor. Right. So they're trying to go 2 for 2 with the five-star edges from that area. But where do you think Miami stands for Stewart?
I think they've got as good a shot as anybody. And if I could only take one player in this class, regardless of position, it'd probably be him. His first step is insane. On 3, I think, has him number 1. I mean, everybody's got their opinion.
Yeah.
But you can never have enough pass rushers, and he is the twitchiest one that I've seen. So I would go with him. But Miami, South Carolina, Alabama, Tennessee, Ohio State, you name it, they've offered and are after him. I think Miami's right there. But again, like you're going to hear this over and over with five-star kids, they don't care because they know they can wait. We're not going to get a decision real quick, but I should get more feedback this weekend. They haven't had him on campus like they have Stone, for instance. This visit means more. Stone's going to come in and he knows where everything's at. He's just bonding now. This is different for Stewart. They need to make up not necessarily ground, but like, what do we need to do to get this kid? What's different about him personality wise, etc. It's not like Miami needs pass rushers desperately after the 2 they just signed. They're not going to sell playing time necessarily. It's going to be something different. Miami has to find that niche because the competition for him is as high as it is for any player in the country. I'm really curious about it. This visit is absolutely vital for Miami.
Now, when you talk about selling playing time, I think a lot more of that is going on in the interior because Miami's going to be losing a lot of defensive linemen after the 2023 season. And, just overall edge and interior, Brian, there seems to be optimism in Miami that they could end up coming away with the best defensive line class in the country. Could you see it trending that way just based on how many guys they're in the mix for?
It's just math. I mean, you just said it. I mean, it's like, surely to God, they're going to get at least a couple of these, right? I mean, most of them I wouldn't want to touch with a 10-foot pole on predicting where they're going to go.
Right.
But I mean, if you've got more irons in the fire, you're in a pretty good spot. Georgia, Miami, Alabama, Ohio State, maybe a couple others, Texas or Texas A&M, Notre Dame, maybe Oregon. Those are the only schools that are kind of in that mix. But Miami might have the most pure edge and D-line combination, like the big guys like Aiden Breeland, et cetera, of anybody visiting. It's insane. So when you have a Hall of Famer as your edge coach, and you got Big Joe, who's another good recruiter, as your D tackle coach, if they don't get at least 2 of these guys, I won't write a very friendly article. You can't bring all these guys in and not get some of them. I won't. I mean, you got to sign some of them at the end of the day. Who they end up being, I don't know, but it's amazing. I was trying to think the other day, name a class, whatever year you want, that had more guys visiting like this than this Miami class, and it'd be so broad. Like Breeland's from LA.
Yeah.
You got Stewart from DC. You got like T.A. Cunningham's now down in Miami, et cetera. They got guys from all over the United States. It's tremendous. So you got to give the staff credit for getting them on campus. Now they got to sign at least a couple of these elite kids. Elite.
Now, somebody else Miami's getting on campus this week is one of the top defensive backs in the country, five-star cornerback Ellis Robinson IV, who is committed elsewhere. So we will talk about him and more when we come back. And I also want to talk about the rumors linking Miami to the Big Ten. So we still have a lot coming up with Brian Smith on Locked On Canes. Guys, you want to make a fast break into these NBA Finals with FanDuel. And we got our Miami Heat trying to take the 2-1 series lead tomorrow. They're 2.5-point underdogs at home in Game 3. And right now, new customers at FanDuel get a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's $2,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win, meaning you really have nothing to lose with that first bet. They have great promotions every day at FanDuel. It's a safe and secure app, and you can get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet all the playoff action than America's #1 sportsbook. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. And for the everydayers, we're going to have a loaded week. We'll have Larry Bluestein on with us later this week. We'll talk a lot more about these official recruiting visits coming up. And if you want to take your everydayer experience to the next level, you want to join our exclusive SMS texting community through Subtext. I include a link in the show description below for how you can sign up to our Subtext community. I give you guys one-on-one conversations on there. You can ask me anything. We give you recruiting updates, news, breaking news scoops from Miami, show previews and notes. Like I gave you guys a preview of what we were going to be talking about with Brian on this episode today, so you were ready for it. You can sign up free for the first 14 days. And then if you want to opt in, we give you a lot of added value on there. If you want to opt in after a 14-day free trial, $4.99 a month. So we include the link in the show description below. So, Brian, another one of the top 10 players in the country Miami's got visiting this weekend is 5-star cornerback Ellis Robinson, the fourth. I love big corners. He's 6'1", 185 pounds. He's currently committed to Georgia. He's kept his recruitment open. So, I don't know, as far as contenders to flip this guy, where do you think Miami stands there?
Oh, they're probably the #1 team. Georgia, hard to beat Georgia for a recruit they want for obvious reasons, but this is a kid that keeps visiting. Again, I mean, go by what a kid does over what he says. He says he's committed, but his actions don't speak to that. So I don't really think he's committed. I just think that Georgia's the leader in the clubhouse. That's kind of how I look at it. Again, everybody's going to recruit him. I mean, Alabama's going to recruit him, Ohio State, everybody. You have to. He's tremendous. But this kid is extremely technically sound. He was probably as technically sound a corner as there was in the country as a junior, and he's got a chance to play very early. That's why it's important for Miami and everybody to go after him, because you just don't get many kids that have his physical traits. He's tall, he's 6'1", and also have the acumen that he does. He's learned technique a little bit faster than most kids, to be really honest, and that's going to give him a chance to start at a Power 5 right away. That's as rare as it gets, Alex. It just, you're not going to win a national title without kids in that area. And to put it in perspective, this is one of my favorite stats in recent college football history. The 2016 playoffs, Washington, Alabama, Ohio State, and Clemson, every one of them in the 2017 draft had at least one, if not two corners drafted in the first or second round.
Wow.
Look, there's just no way around it. There are certain spots. It is just raw freaking talent, and corner is the highest of that. So is Ellis eventually going to be an NFL player? Yes. He's one of the handful just because of how he carries himself, where he's been trained at IMG, his natural ability, all that combined. He's about as close to a lock to get drafted as there is out of anybody in the entire country. You got to give the kid credit for putting in the work too. So Miami's got to continue to recruit him. This is another opportunity, man. They have more playing time available, I guarantee it, than Georgia at corner after this year. I'm very confident in that statement. So they've got something to sell, and he's familiar with the program. Why not Miami?
Wanted to get this comparison from you from Ellis Robinson, because up until mid-January of this year, you and I spent a lot of time on this show talking about he whose name shall no longer be spoken. But let me just say it for reference. Cormani McClain, okay, who, Miami had at one point verbally committed. He never signed. He goes to Colorado. So how does Ellis Robinson this year, heading into his senior season, compare to Cormani McClain as a prospect when he was heading into his senior year at Lakeland?
Totally different types of corners. Body types are similar.
Yeah.
Cormani's about as long a corner as I've ever seen. Just physically, I mean, he's off a computer screen. But that doesn't mean that Ellis is a whole lot different in terms of the physical attributes either. The difference, though, is the style of player. Cormani was a complete gambler. He wanted to jump every route. He could get beat on double moves. He had a lot of technical things to still work on. He was a pure man corner. Ellis can play anything already. Again, it's back to that point I made earlier. He can be a guy that comes in and plays in a cover 3 scheme, a cover 1, he can be a cover 2, whatever you want to run. He'll be cool with it. It's just he's learned it faster than most guys. So he's the more versatile player. Cormani might have the higher upside because his length is just ridiculous.
Wow, that's really good. So another player I wanted to talk about, you mentioned this name when we were talking about defensive linemen. Now, he's not a top 10 guy, but he is a 4-star, borderline 5-star guy. I mean, 24/7 has him as the 33rd rated prospect. So he's right there knocking on the door of being a 5-star. And that's Aiden Breland, a 4-star defensive lineman out of Mater Dei in Southern California. In recent weeks, Miami's been trending very positively with him, Brian, and Breeland is going to be among that star-studded list of visitors this week. Where do you think Miami stands with Breeland?
Everything that I've heard is that Miami's right there at the top. And I was just reading up on him a few hours ago. Like most 5-star kids at some of these elite programs, they kind of cut off the media once the visits start. We don't really get much. We just get bits and pieces. But everything was Miami buzz, and then he had the Miami visit set up, and then everything kind of went dark. So that's all we have. But there are two things that worry me for Miami. It's just distance, and then Mater Dei has always been a feeder school for SC. And they desperately need D linemen. USC's D line's not very good. I mean, kind. So he could walk in and start there. That's hard to turn down when it's right down the street from you. So Miami needs to kill it on the visit. And they, just like you mentioned a minute ago, though, Miami's number one need is D tackle in this class, and it's not questionable. It is D tackle. All their key players on the inside are going to be juniors and seniors at eligibility, pretty much. The only ones that are, not are guys that haven't really done a whole lot. Yes, we don't know that, that's fine, but they need numbers there. So they got a chance to sell playing time just like they do to Ellis Robinson. One of these guys, again, who's it going to be? Who's the first domino to fall for Miami? I'm not saying Aiden Breland's going to commit this weekend, but even if they got him by early July, you throw a freaking parade. You can't keep 300 pounds in the movement that he has. And like IMG, Mater Dei is as well coached as any school in the country. So you're going to get a guy that's more physically advanced. Yeah, but you're also going to get one that's more technically advanced. He can play right away. That changes your program, man. Again, these are guys that put you in the national title hunt. You have to get them.
Over the last 4 days, there's been a lot of buzz linking Miami to the Big Ten, and that buzz has been renewed because Miami, along with a handful of other institutions, including Notre Dame, who's also been a rumored Big Ten target, have been granted AAU status, which designates these schools as research institutions, and having AAU status is something required by the Big Ten to join that conference. So it's not necessarily directly related, but it seems, Miami's been linked to the Big Ten. Suddenly they're an AAU school. So it's got a lot of folks talking, Brian. Now, we already see Cristobal and his staff recruit very much nationally already. So it's not like they're only looking at Florida kids and South Florida kids. So obviously, if you were to join the Big Ten, the geography would change quite a bit. But if Miami could become part of a mega conference like that, how would that impact recruiting?
Wow, that is a great question. I mean, they're always going to recruit Florida first, and it's South Florida, as you know, because you're a native, is different even than the rest of Florida. But they're going to get 5 to 10 kids from South Florida a year. I don't think it would require them to change a whole lot, to be honest, because they're already recruiting like California, like Jaden Wayne. He's from like Tacoma, Washington. So they're kind of doing that stuff anyway. They're recruiting Justin Scott from Chicago. I mean, it would give them a little more access there, but I don't think it's going to maximize or hurt either way all that much. Because even when I was a kid, Russell Maryland was from Chicago.
Yeah.
So there are kids, they've always done that. Ken Dorsey's from California. They've done a great job of that historically. So probably not as much as you might think. But the other side of that is, here's the big one, and they'll never admit this. The only reason they would consider moving to the Big Ten is money.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And
they don't have to admit it. I'm telling you, and Brian's telling you money, obviously. Yeah.
And because you get more money, you have a better chance to do other things with your football program, whether it's, you hire a better dietitian, a better recruiting, whatever it is. There's just no other answer other than money. It's the evil word in society, but it's not changing. It's the same in college football. Yeah. If they went to the Big Ten, could you imagine how much the Big Ten would have to pony up for Miami to, let's be honest, they'd be a fish out of water as far as the rest of the conference. So it's got to be a ton of cash.
Yeah. And obviously the Big Ten, I think the primary reason why they would be interested in someone like Miami would be the South Florida TV market. It's a 100%. Top 20 market that they could capture there. Now, I wanted to ask you about another Miami recruit. This is a Miami verbal commit. And I wanted to ask you because every now and then I get Twitter messages or subtext messages from people who are a little bit nervous about the fact that Chance Robinson, 4-star wide receiver, St. Thomas Aquinas, who's been verbally committed to Miami since April, he is taking other visits. He's taken OVs to other places like Florida. How nervous should Miami fans be, or is he just kind of going through that process, which a lot of players do?
A little of both. I mean, Chance had told me he would take visits after he committed to Miami. He told me that to my face, but he's a Miami fan. His dad's a Miami fan. Chance has always went to games and stuff like that. So they're the considerable leader. The only school that bothered me is the one he took the first weekend, and that was Penn State. And that's for two reasons. Number one, Penn State is completely different. It's at the bottom of a bunch of freaking mountains. I mean, it's about as different from South Florida as you can get. Nothing against the Gators, and I love Gainesville. It's a neat campus and all that, but it's still in Florida. He's not a fan, and this just in, their passing game stinks. Why would you go to Florida? Yeah. That's just my opinion. So if he's going to go, I think it's Penn State, and Juwan Sider is arguably the best recruiter in the country. He knows everybody in South Florida. He's recruiting Jeremiah Smith and everybody. That guy just gets it done, man. He gives me a little pause. I would say there's a pretty high percentage chance he still signs with Miami, but do not count out Penn State. They're having
You had to end it on a low note, didn't you? But we still love you.
Hey, man, I'm honest.
I know. I love it. Brian Smith, you want to follow this man on Twitter at FBScout_Florida. Check out his work at allhurricanes.com, where you can also check out my work and check him out all over Fan Nation and all over the Locked On Podcast Network. Brian, thank you so much for the time.
I appreciate it, sir. You have a wonderful day.
Excellent stuff as always. All right, folks, I want to send a few shout outs when we come back because you guys have been fantastic on the iTunes Apple Podcast reviews. So we have a few of those to shout out and some show notes for later on this week. You want to keep it locked right here to Locked On Canes. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. We are available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. And for the everydayers, I really appreciate when you guys, if you listen to the audio version of the podcast, which is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey app, wherever you get your pods, if you could take a couple minutes, maybe only 30 seconds, I guess, depending on how fast you think and how fast you type, and leave us a 5-star review. It goes a long way. We've gotten some new 5-star reviews. I want to give a shout out to Roy Pinto. Thank you, Roy. He says, great job getting the news out to all. I listen every day and I can't wait for more. Thank you so much. We get a 5-star from White Shiesty, who says, hands down, the best Canes pod. I love how everyone on the show keeps it real. We try, man. I mean, you just heard Brian Smith keeping it real, saying, hey, man, Miami may want to worry a little bit about Penn State for Chance Robinson, so he's keeping it real there. We get a 5-star from P.H. Dre, who says, Alex Donno is a 5-star blue chip and future Hall of Famer when it comes to podcasting. Is there a podcasting Hall of Fame? I don't know if there is or isn't. Maybe I can start it and I can induct myself. That might be the best way for me to get in. He says, although a little undersized at 6 foot, 195 pounds, Alex is an absolute dog and thumper that always keeps his nose in the trenches. It's a scouting report. I love this. He keeps his nose in the trenches for the latest news, analysis, and breakdowns of everything Canes. Donno is a ridiculous athlete with a raw skill set, yet deceptively fast for an Italian, Scandinavian American coming out of South Florida. His passion and professionalism is second to none when it comes to running through the smoke of the journalistic world while covering the unapologetic swagger of the U. If you want the best insight from a fellow feverish Miami fan, I think he wrote this while I had the flu, that brings it every day for 30 minutes or less. Join Alex Donno, host of Locked On Canes, the best daily Miami Hurricanes podcast. Wow. P.H. Dre, that was fantastic. I hope P.H. Dre also writes scouting reports for 24/7 or On3 or Rivals because, dude, you've got a knack for it. That was perfect. That was like, you remember when Elaine Bennis got hired on the J. Peterman catalog because she had a knack for writing those stories? Like, you've got a knack for the scouting report thing, man. We got one from LL Cool Matt, who says, Alex is the man. His tagline is keep it locked to Locked On Canes, and that's exactly what I've done since finding this show. Not only does Donno work his butt off to consistently bring us great info, you could tell that he is just a good-hearted dude. Listening to the show is like having a good friend on the inside with all the real news going on. I appreciate it, LL Cool Matt. And we get one from our guy, Big Canes fan. Thank you, Big Canes fan. Oh wait, I think he already. I think I already read that one because he talked about his wife. You know how he's got to get her indoctrinated as well. All right, so I appreciate you guys for leaving the 5-star reviews. When we get more, we like to shout them out on the program. Thank you so much. And all right, so throughout the week this week, we're going to be reaching out to Larry Bluestein this week. I am going to be reaching out to a couple of Miami Hurricanes verbal commits. Like, remember, we had Isaiah Thomas on last week. I'm going to try to get another one of these guys on this week to talk a little bit about their recruitment and how everything is going. And yes, my friends, as we gear up for this ridiculous June 9th official visit weekend, we're going to be talking about more of these prospects throughout the week. So we talked about a handful today with Brian. We didn't talk about Jarrett Gibson. We didn't talk about LJ McCray today, who we're going to be talking about later. Breeland Staley, the 4-star wide receiver who's visiting, we want to talk about. Oh, here's a note, an unfortunate note, because I'm looking at this OV list, and it still has on the OV list of 24/7 4-star tight end Kylan Fox visiting. He is no longer visiting. Kylan Fox has canceled his Miami official visit as of yesterday, so he will not be visiting. But 4-star tight end Elijah Lofton out of Bishop Gorman in Vegas will be visiting. So Miami is still in the mix for some tight ends, but apparently Kylan Fox is no longer in that Miami mix. So, folks, other ways to support the show. You can join our subtext community. I include the link in the show description below. I send you guys SMS text messages directly from my phone to your phone, one-on-one Q&As, breaking news updates, recruiting updates, completely free for the first 14 days if you want to try it. And then you can opt in for $4.99 a month. We give you a lot of extra added value there. And do us a solid. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel, we've been growing leaps and bounds for the past, I think it's been 13 months since we launched the YouTube version of the channel, and we're closing in on 10,000 subscribers. We've got like 9,700 and some, closing in on 9,800. We'd love to get to 10,000 subscribers by the time football season starts in September. So if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, leave a thumbs up on this video, and we will talk to you again tomorrow on another episode of Locked On Canes, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.